It's good day to brew, baby. What is up, YouTube? It's your boy Millsy. Back to Hometown Commander. Back for another episode of Millsy Brews, the show where I take my first pass at the Commander in front of us on a budget on my quest out brew the magic world. You know the motto, baby. It's ABB, always be brewing, and that's what we're back to do today. The deck list is going to be down in the description for you below. So I'd really appreciate if you could interact with the video, like, comment, subscribe, consider checking out those links in the description. I'd appreciate it. The Discord's been popping lately, and I'd love for you to come join. Today, we're taking a look at a commander we've done in the past, but I thought with all the new artifact support in Edge of Eternities and the last couple sets, I thought it'd be fun to go back and take another stab at Urza Chief Artificer. A 6-mana Esper human artificer that has affinity for artifact creatures, so it costs 1 less for each affinity or artifact creature we control. Gives all of our artifact creatures menace. At the beginning of our end step, we make a construct that gets bigger for each artifact we control. The deck's just trying to load the board with artifacts, make these constructs as big as we can, and make them our opponent's problems. And we're going to use all the artifacts we can to make our board bigger and better over our turns. But I want to say a quick thank you to the channel members. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. If you're interested in seeing all of our videos just a little bit early for just $1 a month, consider checking it down below and supporting the channel. Well, all right. There's a lot of ways to care about artifacts, and truthfully, I think there's a lot of ways you can look at it, but I think what we're going to try to do is just try to give as much raw value into the constructs as we can, as well as getting the higher number of artifacts to make them as big as we can. So something like Karn is going to help us shut down our opponent's artifacts while animating our non-creature artifacts if we want to. Tezzeret Master the Bridge, mainly used for that big +2, dealing X damage to each opponent, where X is the number of artifacts we control and we gain X life. Again, this is just going to get bigger and better as the game goes on, right, and going to help us deal bigger damage. Severman Squadron gives all of our non-legendary artifact creatures Myriad. Remember, that means when the creature attacks for each opponent it isn't attacking, you make a copy of it attacking it. It can get really out of the hands with the constructs. If you think about it, you're basically going to end up tripling the number that all your constructs are for big damage. Illustrious Wanderglyph makes a gnome on everybody's turn, and then once you hit the city's blessing, it's going to buff all of our artifact creatures. Mendicant Core is a really interesting one. So it comes in, it's a *3, restars the number of artifacts you control. It starts your engines, and then once you get to max speed, whenever you cast an artifact, you can actually pay 1 to copy it. And this is a fun ability for a lot of reasons. It can copy a lot of really key things for us. Of course, we got to play the OG Urza, very useful in our deck. Makes a construct when it comes in, and can tap artifacts to add blue mana, and then culminates in that big 5-mana ability to potentially play something for free. Urza's just going to buff all of our artifact creatures. And then for 6 mana, we can actually make a copy of any artifact we want. Except it's a 1/1 soldiers, so the types can be fun for the constructs. It's just going to make them a little bit bigger if you want to. But there's, of course, a lot of other options for artifacts that you can copy. Whirler Rogue comes in with a couple rogues, but has a great ability to tap 2 untap artifacts to give a creature unblockability. Can be really brutal in those constructs the larger they get, dealing more damage. We need to play some board wipes, and I love the idea of something like White Sun's Twilight. We gain X life and make X 1/1 Phyrexian Might artifact creature tokens with Toxic 1. And if it's X is 5 or greater, you just destroy all other creatures. Nice, because then you're wiping the board. And you have a bunch of artifacts sitting around for all your things that care about the amount of artifacts we have. We have things like Whir of Invention and Fabricate to go get key artifacts from our deck and put them. Whir of Invention, we'll put them on the battlefield. Fabricate, we'll put them in our hand. Cranial Plating can buff a creature for each artifact we control, and has the fun ability to attach at instant speed for double black. This is a huge deal because you can attack, see what's not blocked, right, and then attach Cranial Plating before damage to get that really big buff in. Salvation Engine is going to buff our board, and then whenever Salvation Engine attacks, we can get an artifact back from our graveyard back to the battlefield. Again, the buff alone is pretty great, but the fact that you can crew it up with our constructs probably at the mid to late game and get something back is also a pretty big deal. Simulacrum Synthesizer is another way to make those constructs. Whenever an artifact with mana value 3 or greater comes in, you get to make a construct. A lot of our artifacts in the deck do fulfill that, so Synthesizer should allow us to, make some constructs that way. Thunderhawk Gunship, whenever it attacks, gives all of our attacking creatures flying. Good way to get those constructs in for big damage, right, to our opponents, giving them some evasion. Time Sieve can be a fun angle for us, sacrificing 5 artifacts, take an extra turn. I think a lot of times what it's just going to do is give you that extra combat you need to get more damage in. Of course, the new Uthros Research Craft, once we station it to 3-up, just lets us draw cards when we cast an artifact and put a charge counter on it. But once you get to that 12 up, it's basically a copy of our constructs just in the air, right? Being an 08 that gets +1/+0 for each artifact we control, but giving it that natural flying. So we get kind of, if you think about it, another copy of that construct just in the air. And then Tempered Steel going to buff our entire board of artifact creatures. But we also care about making tokens. You know, we could go deep on the token doublers like Elspeth, Stormslayer, or Mondrak. You know, the White God from Lost Caverns of Ixalan. You know, just to double the amount of constructs that are being made. And I think I like Elspeth the most out of all of them. If we only had to play one, which is what we did in our budget range. Because of the ability to give them all flying until our next turn is a huge deal. The bigger they are, right, the better that ability becomes. Otherwise, you're just making twice the number of tokens you would make. Digsite Engineer can help us make some more constructs. Whenever we cast an artifact, we could pay 2 and get a construct. Old-Tech Matter Weaver says whenever we cast a creature, we can either make a gnome or a copy of another artifact token you control. Again, getting more of those constructs. Stride Hanger Automaton, whenever we make a token, we make that many tokens plus a Thopter and buffs all our Thopters. Again, Thopters are artifacts, so they kind of give double duty. They're great bodies for us to use, and they count to make our constructs bigger. Threefold Thunderhawk comes in with a couple counters on it, and whenever it enters or attacks, you make gnome tokens equal to its power. Again, just greatly increasing the number of artifacts we control. That, alongside something like Thousand Moon Smithy, comes in and makes a big gnome soldier equal to the number of artifacts and or creatures we control. And then we can tap 5 untap artifacts or creatures to flip it over into a land that, when we use that mana to cast an artifact or creature, can make more gnome soldiers. So we kind of get the gnome soldiers right alongside the constructs. Wold Walker Helm says whenever we'd make an artifact token, we make that many tokens plus a map. Again, the map can be used to explore and dig, but it's also useful just to have another copy of an artifact token. But again, Helm's biggest ability is its bottom one, paying 2 mana just to get another copy of an artifact token you control. Again, getting more of those constructs, growing them all, making them more of a threat. Dollmaker's Shop is going to make a toy whenever one or more non-toy creatures we control attack a player, allowing us to get more artifacts on board. And then, depending on how wide you go, Porcelain Gallery can just turn all of our creatures huge, equal to the number of creatures we control. Mechanized Production enchants an artifact we control. Being able to upkeep, you get a copy of it. And then if you control 8 or more artifacts with the same name as one another, you win the game. The really fun part about Mechanized Production is that the 8 artifacts that share a name do not have to be the thing that's enchanted. So Mechanized Production could go on a Mana Rock or something like that and just get you more copies of it while we're making our constructs. But the only downside to putting Mechanized Production on the construct is then it's a creature it's easier to remove, right? Whereas if you put it on a non-creature artifact, right, it's going to be a little bit harder for our opponents to move that and take the Mechanized Production away. And we have things to make Thopters, constructs, gnomes. There's a lot of ways we could potentially get to this 8 or more artifacts to satisfy the Mechanized Production. But I've said before on the show, and I'll say it again, no deck's ever complete. This is our most recent look at Urza. And I think going into testing, a lot of what I would change the deck just comes with budget. Things like Mondrak and Anointed Procession, these things that are going to double the amount of tokens you make, are killer, especially because once you make 2 constructs once, you're already off to the races. We have that new Uthros Titanic God Core, the new Talarian Academy. Is a great thing since our deck already cares about the number of artifacts we have. I just couldn't fit it in the budget, but I think it's one of those key things that can really help. As well as some more protection. Our deck is playing a good amount of protection already. We're going to be making these constructs, so we want to keep them alive. So we're playing the Flawless Maneuvers and the Flare of Fortitudes of the world. We do want to add more things like Clever Concealment or more counter spells, right, to help protect our board. I think is a key idea in making sure that these, constructs that we're making on our end step survive back to our turn and we're able to use them for big deals. But let's do what we love to do on the channel the most and get into our playtests. Remember, the goal of playtests on our channel is not to find magical Christmas land. It's not just to show off all our best plays, but it's to get in some gameplay scenarios and kind of see what hands we would keep and how we're going to maneuver them. So here we've got a 3-lander, but we've got a Talisman. And we have Master of Ethereum, which grows for each number artifact we control and gives other creatures a buff. That's kind of nice because then it can help us station that research craft and get it online. And then Void Rend for some removal. So I like starting with the bridge here. Remember that the bridge is an artifact. So these artifact lands are going to count for all of these notes. And note we were playing all 7 artifact lands we could play. All 3 of the bridges, all 3 of the single color ones, and Darksteel Citadel. Here on 2, I think we just play the Talisman, right? And remember, Urza has affinity for artifact creatures, so 1 less for each one. So I think it's just the Ethereum here. It's going to come out as a 2/2. We play Mycosynth Gardens, can go in for a mana of a color, but the big ability is to pay X to tap it to become a copy of target non-token artifact you control with mana value X. We could make another copy of the Research Craft. Great to become something like a Simulacrum Synthesizer if you could see one. So we do have enough mana for Urza here. We have 5, and he costs 6 -1, so he's 5. So I think Urza makes the most sense. Get in and get it started. Right, and then remember that these constructs are going to be buffed by +1 because of this Master of Ethereum. Here I'm thinking Research Craft, and I've got 3 mana left. I guess it could be the Matter Weaver. I kind of think I'd rather just hold up the Void Rend. Right now, Urza would be 4. Master would be 4. And the construct would be 5. So I could actually turn the Research Craft on right now, or I could, yeah, I actually think, so that's what, 13? I actually think that makes the most sense to me right now, because at the end step, right, we're getting another construct. That one will be untapped, right? And now as we come back to our turn, we've got the Research Craft ready to go as another construct just in the air. Cast the Felwar Stone, which is going to draw us a card and put a charge counter on this. We got 5 mana. Could go for the engine, just buff everything and try to get like the Research Craft or something back. I kind of like that. Put a counter on it. Draw a card. I mean, you could see that card draw really coming in handy, right, as it's helping to refill our hand, which is another reason why I think I like the Research Craft so much. But I mean, you go to combat, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So this would be a 7/8, but remember, Master makes it an 8/9. These guys are both 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8/8s because I'm Master. So plus the +2/+2. So you got some decent amount of damage to come out here. They're also going to have Menace, right, because of Urza. And so they're looking pretty good. And then we get a construct, right, at the end of turn. And then coming into our next turn here, 8 mana is just so much. I kind of want to draw, right? If Artificer is going to keep drawing me cards, we could go Chromatic Lantern, draw. I mean, the whole point here is just try to get more bodies on board and get more value. Make the Gnome Soldier, draw off the Research Craft. There's another artifact that's going to count for our number. And then, that Gnome Soldier could crew the Salvation Engine if we want to get it involved attacking, since it can't attack. Again, unless somebody has a board wipe at this point, we've got a ton of value. I mean, 7 mana down. This turn we used up. We have enough mana to leave up for the Void Rend. And I think we're just in good shape, as long as nobody has the board wipe. We would have loved to have seen a protection spell, but, you're not always going to see them. Let's get into playtest number 2 here. Keep it a 4-lander with Swords to Plowshares. There's the Mindlink mech. So Mindlink mech's a really interesting vehicle. So when it becomes crewed for the first time each turn, it becomes a copy of target non-legendary creature that crewed it this turn, except it's a 4/3 vehicle. Remember that the +1/+1 ability for each artifact you control is an ability on the construct, meaning that Mindlink mech will then become a 4/3 artifact with that ability and flying, becoming a really big threat in the air. And Sai, which can draw some cards when we cast artifacts. So I like the ability of getting this process started, trying to get some value in. Like the idea of getting Cyan. That way we can get some value. So here my thought is Mendicant Core, which will make me a Thopter. And then Mindlink Mech, which will make me a Thopter. Mendicant Core will start my engines, but unfortunately I don't have anything I think that can really get in. Unless Sai has a good attack, which I'm going to probably doubt, right? I think we just have to come into our next one. Urza only costing 3 mana here, so I think it makes a ton of sense just to get Urza in. No construct just quite yet, right? We could go Talisman, get another Thopter. Again, just basically try to get our value. So Mindlink could become a copy of well, can't become a copy of a legend, so that pretty much isn't going to happen. So we could just crew it with a Thopter and get it in the air, and I mean, pretty much just make sure we uptick our start the engines count, right? There's Kappa Cannoneer. Whenever another artifact comes in, it gets a counter and is unblockable. Sorry, we would have got that construct. So now we've got the construct there. Love to like try to copy Kappa Cannoneer. Maybe we wait to try to get our wait to try to get our start the engines up, because it's pretty much guaranteed this turn. Crew the Mindlink mech, all the Thopters have Menace. Right, we're getting our way up. Make a construct on end step. And then what I'd probably do is just go through combat, so we're at max speed, play the Kappa, and copy it, right? Because of Menneking Core's ability. And now the Kappas are going to become a real threat. Is that a once per turn effect? It is not. Just whenever another one comes in, you get an ability. So at the end, they're both going to get a counter, right? Because of the construct coming in. We would have made a Thopter on cast, so that would have come in. Whenever you cast one, make a copy. So this one would have come in, and that one would have probably seen the Thopter too. And again, unless anybody has removal, we're in good space. If somebody wipes the board, I mean, we can get, Urza back in and completely rebuild. We could also sack, we probably have the mana to sack these Thopters to draw cards off of Sai as well. Maybe we give up, a couple Thopters. We have enough to at least sack 2, to try to continue to dig, for value. But otherwise, we kind of saw the game plan. I think there it's just protecting the board, right, from what our opponents may have. Playtest number 3 here. Given a 3-lander with that dig site engineer, so a potential chance to make some constructs. Phyrexian Metamorph can come in as a copy of any creature or artifact. Talisman and the engine. I think we're going to probably just take the first 2 turns off here, getting tap lands in. I love the idea of trying to get some constructs with the dig sites, like cast the Talisman, pay the 2 for the construct, right? Because not only that, but it reduces the cost of Urza. So Urza's only 5 right now. I'm a little low on the engine being able to get me value. So I think it's just Urza for 5. And then, get one on end step. Ooh, there's the Indomitable. Can draw us cards when our creatures hit our opponents. I'm 1 mana off Warlord Rogue and the Indomitable. The Indomitable could be really good this turn to not only get another construct off dig site, but try to potentially maybe get a card or 2. Pay the 2 here, and let's just say at least one of the constructs can get in for damage. That Synthesizer is huge. Play the Synthesizer, get the construct off of it. We get to scry 2. Karn's pretty good. Worldwide Arm's pretty good. So that was 5. I've got 3 mana left. I could pay the Phyrexian Metamorph's cost. I think make it a copy of the Synthesizer. It's going to then make a construct when it comes in and scry me 2. Again, we're content with how the 2 were on there. But the point is now these are bigger and we're getting double the constructs now. I would imagine somebody can probably get in for some damage here. But the key part now is to get something like Sorin down. Again, give all of our creatures lifelink on our turn. Meaning these 5 are 1, 2, 3, 4, 9s. Which means we're gaining 9 times 5. We're gaining 40 life this turn. Or 45 life this turn. Just even if they block, right? And so that just goes to show you some of the value in something like lifelink in this scenario, and I guess I'd probably go for that. You could also go for the Worldwalker Realm and get it because it will trigger synthesizers, giving me golem or giving me constructs, right? Because it's a 3. So my thought is I've got 7, 8 mana. So my thought is Sorin plus the Helm. Remember the Helm gives me 2 constructs, right? Because of these 2. The Helm would be on enter. So I believe it would create maps as well, because it would see itself, tick up the Soren, and then just attack, right? And now you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I think, what, 5 or 6 attacking, because I think we might have made a construct last turn we forgot about. They have Menace, and I think we're just in, good shape on that one again. Scene protection. Let's go one more here. Keep it a 5-lander with the Talisman and Mindlink mech. So a little bit heavier on the lands, but the hope is that we can maneuver it here right into some value. Play the Talisman. Play the Mindlink. So we can get that plating in. Urza for the full 6 mana, but I don't know that we mind. That construct can crew the Mindlink mech this turn, because remember it came in before. So that would be a 7/4 in the, or sorry, an 8/7 in the air with flying, right? Take the attack in. Sorry, no, the construct's at the end of turn, so no, sorry, I apologize. Can't get that there. 7 mana here. I love the idea of something like Season of Weaving. Could make a couple copies of the construct just to set up, right? Maybe go for something like Soren next turn. So my thought is do the double pause to make copies there and then draw a card. So bang, bang. Use one of them to crew the Mindlink mech this turn. And then get a construct on end of turn. And my thought with this 7 mana is, Soren plus the Tempered Steel. Again, one of them goes into the Mindlink. Now they're gaining us life back. They're even bigger. And again, this is why I just like the idea of something like Soren in this build. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. As I say, if we had another mana, we could get something like the Time Sieve down. We're just not making that many artifact tokens at the moment. But again, the nice part is that if, let's say, somebody kills Urza, if it goes to the graveyard, we can always get it back with Soren, right, at this point, which is interesting. Or maybe we wait a turn, but you know what I mean? Like, the nice part is they have to wipe the board. Just getting rid of Urza doesn't always help, because remember, he has affinity for artifact creatures. So if somebody were to remove him right now, he's still -4 right now. And we could actually crew the mech to make it 5, meaning he'd be able to come in for just 3 mana even with the commander tax. But I'd love to know, what do you think of Urza down in the comment section below? I did this mainly for myself. I tried Urza for some time, and I thought about maybe going back, but I think with the decks that I have right now, Urza's still on the back burner, but maybe it's something I'd want to come back to in the future. I love, some of these new pieces, alongside the classic stuff that's been in Urza, so I think it's a ton of fun, and it probably just only is going to get better over time. But I'd love to know what you think, and I will catch you on the next one.